The water has always been my freedom. 3 years after losing my legs in Afghanistan, I found something in swimming that the military never taught me. Peace. In the water, my body doesn't feel the weight of my prosthetics or the pitying looks from others. I'm just Ryan Thompson, 35 years old, gliding across the blue surface of Pinecrest's community pool. The summer of 2023 was especially scorching. Waking up at 6 a.m. became my sacred routine. I put on my prosthetics, drive over to the community pool, and get there before most people. I swapped the prosthetics for my custom wheelchair, my gateway to the pool. That chair isn't just a piece of equipment. It cost me 3 months of savings. Made from water-resistant material, with my name engraved on the backrest and special compartments to store my prosthetics. Brandon, the lifeguard, always waves at me as he sets up the area. Melissa, the manager, often asks if I need anything. Mrs. Cooper, a silver-haired lady who's been swimming longer than anyone else, usually says my stroke has improved. These small interactions rebuilt my confidence. After Afghanistan and all the surgeries, every bit of normalcy is worth its weight in gold. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like to get access to more stories like this. That Tuesday, I finished my usual laps and got close to the edge to get out. The pool was more crowded than usual. A group of kids was in a swimming class in the shallow end. I reached out for my chair in its usual spot, but it wasn't there. I was partially submerged, clutching the edge, searching with my eyes. My heart raced. Without my chair or prosthetics, I was essentially stuck. I tried to keep calm while scanning the pool deck, until I saw something that froze me in place. My chair on the other side of the pool, with 2 children spinning it around while a woman in sunglasses watched. "Excuse me," I called out, waving. "That's my wheelchair." The woman looked in my direction but went back to her phone. I called over Brandon, who quickly understood the situation and approached her. "Ma'am, I need you to return that chair to its owner," Brandon explained. "I just saw it sitting here, abandoned," she replied without taking her eyes off her phone. "My kids were bored." "Mom," the older boy tugged at her sleeve. "It has a name on it." "It's pool equipment," she declared, finally looking at me. "Why does he need special treatment?" Brandon helped me out of the pool by improvising with a plastic chair while he explained the situation to the woman, who eventually identified herself as Jennifer Baker. "Mr. Thompson is a veteran and needs that specific chair," Brandon explained. "It's not property of the pool." "My taxes pay for these facilities," Jennifer retorted, now standing up. "I don't see why some people deserve special treatment." Melissa, the manager, came over after hearing the argument. "Ms. Baker, that chair is Mr. Thompson's private property. It's customized for his specific needs. So, anyone can bring in equipment and claim special space? Is that why the place has been so crowded lately?" Jennifer said, crossing her arms. "If you don't return my property immediately, I'll have to involve the authorities," I said firmly, feeling the eyes of the other patrons on me. Jennifer finally ordered her kids to return the chair, but when they did, I noticed one of the compartments was damaged. "That'll have to be fixed," I observed. "You're overreacting." She rolled her eyes. "It was just an unused chair." Melissa intervened. "Ms. Baker, your behavior violates our policies. I'm going to have to suspend your membership temporarily." Jennifer gathered her things furiously. "Special treatment for special people as always. Come on, kids." Before leaving, she looked directly at me. "Some people really love playing the victim, don't they?" 30 minutes after Jennifer left, I was in the locker room trying to fix the damaged compartment when Brandon came in. "Ryan, there's a police officer out there who wants to talk to you." On the pool deck, Jennifer was standing next to a uniformed officer, pointing in my direction. "That's him." The officer introduced himself. "I'm Officer Wilson. Ms. Baker filed a complaint claiming you verbally harassed and threatened her in front of her kids." "What?" I was stunned. "That's completely false. She grabbed my wheelchair without permission, damaged it, and now she's making up stories?" Melissa quickly intervened. "Officer, we installed security cameras last month. I can show you the footage of the incident." In a small administrative room, we watched the high-definition footage. Officer Wilson's face hardened as he saw Jennifer grabbing the chair while I was swimming, ignoring the older boy's protests. "Ms. Baker," the officer turned to her. "This video directly contradicts your story. Filing a false police report is a crime in Florida." Jennifer paled. "He was being aggressive. I didn't know the chair was his. It just looked like public equipment." "Your name is engraved on the backrest," Wilson pointed out. "Mr. Thompson, given the circumstances, would you like to press charges for misappropriation of property and damage?" I looked at Jennifer, then at her kids anxiously waiting near the entrance. The oldest, about 10 years old, looked embarrassed. "I'm not pressing charges," I finally replied. "But I'd like to make sure this never happens to anyone else." After Jennifer and her kids left, Officer Wilson stayed behind. "I've got a prosthetic leg too," he revealed, slightly lifting his pant leg. Iraq, 2011. We exchanged a few stories while he filled out the incident report. That night, I barely slept. Not because I was angry or frustrated, but because I kept thinking about how a simple object, my chair, carried so much meaning. To Jennifer, it was just a thing. To me, it represented my independence. 3 days later, Melissa called to say that the board had approved new policies regarding accessibility equipment and an awareness program. "Your incident opened a lot of eyes, Ryan." The following Sunday, I was organizing my shopping in the parking lot when a car pulled up nearby. A man got out accompanied by Jennifer's older son. "Mr. Thompson? I'm Scott Baker, Jennifer's husband. This is our son, Ethan. We came personally to apologize for what happened." Ethan stepped forward, extending an envelope. "I made an apology card, and I saved up my allowance to help fix your chair." The unexpected gesture caught me off guard. Scott explained that Jennifer had been going through a rough patch after losing her job, but that didn't excuse her actions. "And Ethan was the one who insisted we come," Scott admitted. "He gave us a lesson in character." A week after the incident at the pool, I received an unexpected call from Officer Wilson. I thought it was just a routine follow-up, but his words surprised me. "Ryan, I just wanted to let you know that the department has decided to press charges against Jennifer Baker for perjury. We don't need your complaint for that." I felt a mix of emotions. Part of me believed she deserved consequences, while another part worried about what it would mean for her family, especially for little Ethan. "What's the punishment going to be?" I asked. "Probably community service and a fine. The prosecution is ready to offer a plea deal, considering she has no prior criminal record." After hanging up, I kept thinking about how a simple incident at a pool had now involved the judicial system. It was never my intention to get to this point. The next day, I was at Veterans Hope Rehabilitation Center for my weekly physical therapy when Dr. Sanchez, the director, approached me during my break. "Ryan, I heard about what happened at the community pool. News travels fast in Pinecrest," he commented, sitting next to me. "We're developing an educational campaign about mobility devices and respect for assistive equipment. I'd like you to be a part of it." "What do you mean?" "I'm not exactly a public speaker," I replied, surprised by the invitation. "You don't have to be. Your experience is valuable. A lot of people just don't understand how important these devices are in the lives of those who use them. It's not just convenience, it's independence and dignity." Dr. Sanchez's proposal included a series of workshops in local schools, a panel discussion at the city hall, and educational materials distributed in public spaces. The goal was simple: turn my negative incident into an opportunity for awareness. "I'll think about it," I promised, even though I was already inclined to accept. That night, I received a message from an unknown number. It was Mike Dawson, a fellow veteran I only knew casually from VA hospital meetings. He had seen a post about the incident on a neighborhood social network. "Hey Thompson, I heard about what happened at the pool. You know, something similar happened to me at the supermarket last year. Someone thought my crutch was just a decorative item and tried to buy it. Want to grab a coffee tomorrow? Maybe we can share some horror stories." I smiled as I read the message. The way Mike downplayed the situation with humor was refreshing. We agreed to meet at Cafe Madison, and that meeting unexpectedly sparked something: an informal support group. The following week, there were 5 of us veterans sharing experiences and strategies for handling awkward situations. Carlos lost an arm in Iraq and had surreal stories about people trying to help without asking permission. Maya used a hearing aid and was often spoken to as if she couldn't understand simple instructions. Keith, with PTSD, recounted how people questioned his disability because it wasn't obvious. "The problem is, most people don't have bad intentions," Maya observed during our third meeting. "They just don't know any better." "Then we educate them," replied Keith. In less than a month, our small, informal gathering at the cafe turned into Project Understanding. We created a simple website to share our stories and practical tips on how to interact respectfully with people with disabilities. The Pinecrest Police Department even invited us to talk at their monthly officer meeting, and the local library offered space for a community event. Dr. Sanchez was impressed with our initiative and incorporated our material into the Veterans Hope campaign. Although the case with Jennifer Baker was the catalyst, it was rarely mentioned directly. It wasn't about pointing fingers. It was about creating understanding. Before I knew it, I was involved in something bigger than myself. Meeting with other veterans reconnected me with a sense of purpose I'd lost since leaving the service. The community now felt different. Not just a place where I lived, but a space where I could contribute. You know what's funny? I commented to Mike during one of our meetings. That day at the pool, I felt completely invisible. And now I'm more connected with the community than I ever have been. 3 months have passed since the incident at the pool. The fall brought milder temperatures to Pinecrest, and with them, some unexpected news. Officer Wilson called to say that Jennifer Baker had accepted a plea deal. 100 hours of community service at the Independent Living Center, an organization that helps people with disabilities develop skills to live on their own. She had milder options, Wilson explained. But apparently she specifically requested this place. I thought you'd like to know. The news left me intrigued. Jennifer Baker, the woman who once justified taking my wheelchair as just some abandoned thing, was now voluntarily choosing to work with people with disabilities? It seemed unlikely. A couple of weeks later, I was at the supermarket when I saw her. Jennifer was pushing a shopping cart down the canned goods aisle, checking her grocery list. I thought about pretending I didn't see her, but she looked up and our eyes met. For a moment, we both stood still. To my surprise, she walked over. She looked different. Her hair was shorter, and her stance was less confrontational. "Mr. Thompson," she began softly. "I didn't expect to run into you here." "Ryan," I corrected automatically. "Just call me Ryan." She nodded, gripping the cart firmly. "Ryan, I'd like to apologize to you in person for what happened. I know Scott and Ethan already spoke to you, but I needed to say it myself." I noticed her hands tremble slightly. She wasn't the same confident, indignant woman from the pool. "My behavior was unforgivable," she continued. "Not only did I take your property without permission, but I also lied about it. I made up a story trying to paint you as the villain because I couldn't admit my mistake." "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked, genuinely curious. "Because I'm learning," she replied simply. "At the center, I met extraordinary people. People facing challenges I never imagined, yet showing more dignity than I did that day." Jennifer told me about her first week at the center. Assigned to help at reception, she was impressed by a young woman named Rachel, who had cerebral palsy and used an advanced communication device. Rachel was a software programmer developing apps for people with similar disabilities. She explained to me that your equipment isn't just a thing. It's your voice, your independence, exactly like how your chair is for you, Jennifer said, her eyes welling up. I realized how ignorant I was. I stayed quiet, absorbing her words. It felt like a sincere transformation, not just empty words to soften legal consequences. "I had a lot of time to think about why I acted that way," she continued. "I lost my job 2 weeks earlier. I was frustrated, stressed, and feeling powerless. I took it out on you, someone who's clearly faced challenges far greater than mine." She paused. "I'm not asking for sympathy or forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I'm working on being better." "Thank you for telling me," I finally replied. "That means a lot." Before we said goodbye, Jennifer mentioned she was voluntarily organizing a workshop at the center on respectful communication. "If you want to join, your perspective would be really valuable." As I watched her walk down the supermarket aisle, I reflected on how people can surprise you. Jennifer Baker, who once symbolized insensitivity and privilege to me, was now genuinely committed to learning and educating. 2 weeks later, I attended her workshop. The room was packed. Relatives of people with disabilities, health professionals, and some curious community members. Jennifer introduced me respectfully as someone who taught her an important lesson about dignity. She didn't mention our incident specifically, and I appreciated her tact. What impressed me the most was her honesty in addressing her own past prejudices and how she was working to overcome them. She didn't present herself as an expert, but as someone still on a journey of learning. At the end of the session, Ethan appeared to pick up his mom. He recognized me immediately and came over. "Mr. Thompson, Mom said you'd be here. Want to see what I built in science class? It's a model prosthetic made out of recycled materials." Jennifer watched the scene with a mix of pride and humility. Later, she confessed to me, "Ethan decided he wants to be a prosthetic engineer when he grows up." At least something positive came out of that terrible day. The following spring, the effects of that incident at the community pool continued to expand in ways I'd never imagined. The Pinecrest Police Department implemented a new mandatory training program for all officers on how to interact respectfully with people with disabilities. Officer Wilson, now promoted to sergeant, personally led the sessions. "We're using real case studies," he explained during one of our monthly luncheons. Situations like yours, where what looks like a simple misunderstanding can quickly escalate into something more serious if not handled properly. The training covered everything from communication techniques to recognizing different types of assistive devices and understanding their significance to users. Part of the curriculum included hands-on simulations, where officers temporarily experienced physical limitations to develop more empathy. The feedback has been surprisingly positive, Wilson commented. Many officers admitted they'd never really considered certain aspects before. One even confessed that he used to lean on wheelchairs during conversations with users, never realizing how invasive that could be. The schools in Pinecrest also embraced the cause. Mrs. Rivera, the principal of Pinecrest Elementary where Jennifer's children attended, introduced a special curriculum called Respect and Inclusion. Once a month, they invited people with various disabilities to speak with the students. I was invited to one of these sessions. Sitting in front of a fourth-grade class, including Ethan Baker, I shared my experience in the Army, the accident that led to the amputation of my legs, and how I adapted my life afterward. The kids asked surprisingly insightful questions. "Do you still dream about having legs?" one little girl asked. "Do people treat you differently when they find out you're a veteran and weren't born this way?" another boy questioned. "Is it annoying when people stare for too long?" a shy child at the back inquired. I answered honestly, without sugarcoating reality, but also without over-dramatizing. The children absorbed everything with a respectful curiosity that so many adults failed to show. After the class, Mrs. Rivera thanked me. "You know what impresses me the most? The kids are taking these lessons home. I've received emails from parents saying their kids are educating them on appropriate language and respectful behavior." Pinecrest Community Center decided to host an Accessibility Awareness Day. What started as a small event grew into a full-blown fair. Support organizations set up information booths, artists with disabilities showcased their work, and there were demonstrations of assistive technologies. Our team from Project Understanding set up a booth titled Ask Us Anything. The idea was to create a safe space where people could ask questions they'd normally be too afraid to voice. Maya, Carlos, Keith, and I took turns answering questions that are often avoided out of embarrassment. Should I offer help to someone in a wheelchair, or is that offensive? How should I react when my kid points and asks about someone with a visible disability? Is it okay to ask a veteran how he got injured? Every question was answered with patience and without judgment. Our philosophy was simple. It's better to ask respectfully than to keep ignorant for fear of offending. Jennifer Baker surprised everyone by taking an active role in organizing the event. She coordinated volunteers, ensured local media coverage, and even secured sponsorships from local companies. I saw her working tirelessly, often staying late to finalize details. "It's strange," she commented during a break in setup. "I never imagined I'd get this involved. I started out because I had to, legally speaking, but now I feel like I've found a purpose." On the day of the event, over 600 people showed up, a remarkable number for a community the size of Pinecrest. The mayor gave a speech announcing new accessibility initiatives, including sidewalk renovations and the installation of adapted equipment in the municipal park. The most moving moment for me was when a group of elementary school kids performed a play they had written. The story featured a person in a wheelchair having their equipment borrowed without permission, and how that affected their independence. The message was simple but powerful, especially knowing it was inspired by that incident at the pool. Ethan Baker played the lead role. After the performance, he ran up to me, still in his costume. "Did we do the right thing, Mr. Thompson? Did we show how important it is?" "You did more than right," I replied, genuinely moved. "You understood." Watching the crowd interact, learn, and have fun, I realized how far we'd come since that morning at the pool. What started as an unpleasant confrontation had turned into a community movement for education and empathy. Melissa, the pool manager, came up with a smile. "I never imagined that day would lead to all this," she commented, watching the fair. "You know we've implemented mandatory training for all our staff, right? And we have a new printed regulation on respecting assistive equipment. And so far, no more incidents." "Sometimes," I replied, "it takes a few waves to get everyone's attention." Subscribe to the channel and leave your like to get access to more stories like this. A full year passed since the incident at the community pool. Summer arrived again in Pinecrest, bringing the familiar heat and that sense of renewal I've always loved. My morning swimming routine continued, but many things had changed. The pool now had an additional access ramp, lockers adapted for assistive equipment, and a discreet sign listing guidelines for respecting these devices. On a sunny June morning, I received an unexpected call from the mayor's office. The secretary, in a cheerfully formal tone, informed me that I would be honored during the city's annual celebration with the Catalyst Citizen Award, a new category created specifically to recognize individuals whose actions have sparked significant community change. I didn't do anything to deserve an award, I immediately protested. I just responded to a difficult situation. Mr. Thompson, she replied patiently, the award isn't for the incident itself, but for the movement you helped create afterward. Project Understanding has already impacted thousands of people. The school program is being adopted by other districts. The police training program developed here is being considered at the state level. Reluctantly, I ended up accepting the invitation to the ceremony, which was to be held at Central Pinecrest Park. The night before the event, while sitting on my terrace gazing at the stars, I reflected on how such a negative moment had turned into something so significant. I remembered the anger I felt that day, watching Jennifer Baker treat my chair like some abandoned toy. I remembered the humiliation of being stuck in the pool, dependent on others. The feeling of powerlessness when she tried to paint me as the aggressor. In that moment, it seemed like the world was still so unfair and uncaring, despite all the sacrifices I made serving my country. Now, 12 months later, that anger had transformed into purpose. The humiliation into understanding. The powerlessness into action. The ceremony was more grand than I expected. Hundreds of residents gathered in the park, which had recently been renovated for accessibility. Another indirect result of that day at the pool. A temporary stage had been set up, complete with an access ramp and designated seating for wheelchairs at the front of the audience. When the mayor announced my name, I was met with an ovation that rendered me momentarily speechless. As I stepped onto the stage using my prosthetics, I saw familiar faces in the crowd. Brandon, the lifeguard, Melissa, the pool manager, Mrs. Cooper with her ever-present sun hat, Officer Wilson in full uniform, and Mike, Carlos, Maya, and Keith from Project Understanding. Scott and Ethan Baker were there too, clapping enthusiastically. And Jennifer. She was standing at the back, more reserved. But her eyes met mine, and she gave a small smile and a subtle nod of acknowledgement. Ryan Thompson exemplifies how we can turn adversity into opportunity, the mayor declared as he handed me the plaque. Your legacy isn't defined by one moment of conflict, but by how that moment sparked waves of positive change in our community. Taking the microphone, I felt the weight of everyone's expectations. They all expected an eloquent speech about overcoming and transformation. Instead, I chose simplicity. This award, I began, is not about what happened to me. It's about what all of us decided to do afterward. That day at the pool, I felt invisible, as if my needs didn't matter. Today, when I look at our community, I see that we've all become more visible to one another. I briefly recounted how Project Understanding had grown, connecting isolated veterans, creating educational materials that are now used in schools and police departments across the state, and how the accessibility renovations in the park and other public spaces benefited not only people with disabilities but also seniors, parents with strollers, and anyone with temporarily reduced mobility. A moment of inadvertent disrespect became a catalyst for greater understanding, I continued. Not because we sought revenge or harbored resentment, but because we chose to educate and connect. At the end of my speech, I did something I hadn't planned. I asked Jennifer Baker to come up on stage. A murmur ran through the audience. Many knew of her connection to the original incident. Jennifer visibly hesitated, but Ethan gently pushed her forward. As she stepped up on stage, I noticed her nervousness, but also her determination. Jennifer Baker deserves as much recognition as I do, I declared, surprising many. She could have taken her community service as a mere punishment, but instead, she embraced the chance to grow and contribute. The awareness program at the Independent Living Center, which she now volunteers to lead, has reached hundreds of families. I passed her the microphone, and she accepted it with slightly trembling hands. I made a terrible mistake, Jennifer said simply. A mistake born of ignorance and privilege that I never acknowledged. I could have become defensive and bitter about the consequences. Instead, I decided to learn. And the more I learned, the more I realized how much I still have to learn. After the ceremony, while talking with several community members, a local newspaper reporter approached me. Mr. Thompson, what do you consider to be the most important legacy of this entire experience? She asked, recorder in hand. I thought for a moment before replying, maybe it's understanding that communities aren't abstract entities. They're connections between real people. And those connections have to be built on mutual respect and understanding. And what about the future? She pressed. What are the next steps? I looked around the park. Kids were playing on the new accessible equipment. A group of seniors, some with walkers, were using the newly paved path. In the distance, I saw Jennifer animatedly discussing some future project with the school principal. The next step? I repeated with a smile. Keep swimming. Keep moving forward. And always remember that even the smallest gestures can create waves that transform an entire community. Later that night, I went back to the pool for some quiet laps under the stars. A special favor granted by Melissa to some regulars. The water was perfectly calm when I entered, but with every stroke, small ripples formed that eventually reached the pool's edge, bounced back, and transformed the entire surface. A perfect metaphor, I thought, for how our actions, no matter how small, continue to ripple out long after we start them. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like to get access to more stories like this.